and we were waiting for them to come meet us up, and we were headed to Sasebo, which is very south of Japan. So we headed straight up to Japan. At that point, we were the only 6 basically rescue swimmers with 2 Sierras that could actually do anything. So the moment we could ascend, and the Reagan showed up, the moment we could take off, we basically took off and affected basically assisting the local population however we could. I mean, we were flying and there was like a whole house that was 50 miles out just in the water floating. It was the most disaster I've ever seen.
Like out in the ocean, you mean?
Oh, out in the ocean. Like before you even got there was ships, cargo containers, like all kinds of stuff. You know, some stuff I won't talk about, some stuff, you know, like I said, the house, but really sad. But the amount of stuff that we were able to do there was definitely rewarding to see that like directly. The impact you made was something that I'll never forget. But on top of that, I'll never forget flying around and understanding like the Fukushima plant had just blown up and we didn't know about it. And they took us back, and it was something straight out of a movie where they kind of quarantined us and Geiger counters and started taking our flight gear, you know.
Wow.
Fun times.
What was this? Like, how did the Navy split up tasks for such a big kind of apocalyptic environment?
So they learned a lot from, so if you talk to any swimmers that were part of the hurricane relief in New Orleans, a lot of the senior guys, a lot of lessons were learned there, because I think the big issue and the way they orchestrated it and the difference was the airspace was definitely an issue. Controlling, if you've ever flown before and anyone's ever, controlling aircraft seems pretty simple. But when you have a ton of people in a small area and orchestrating who goes where and who needs what is a logistics nightmare. So they had basically a C2 or command and control that everyone reported to. And when you landed in a zone or you landed somewhere, and they kind of, okay, who needs what, what's where. And you basically kind of, whoever had the best resources at that time, because we would be loaded up with like, let's say women's hygiene products that needed to get somewhere because they didn't have them. I mean, people lost their livelihood and their entire families, and they're held up in schools on hills. Well, who needs it? So who needs it the most, and basically command and control, in a sense, without getting too deep into it, would say, okay, you know, this aircraft needs to land here and deliver this and then go here. And it was very tightly organized. We would land, go find out what they needed, if anyone was nearby that needed help, and then come back and relay that back. And it was a giant orchestrated event. It was really cool to see.
You being on scene though, what is it like interacting with the Japanese and like the language barrier?
You get pointy talkies is what they call it. So it's basically like a piece of paper that, you know, hey, here's, what do you need? Do you need this? Like, hey, here's where I am wanting to help. I really, us on that deployment, I mean, all of us, there was a huge amount of respect that we had for the Japanese people and what they went through. The big thing I would say is one of our crews landed in a zone, and there was like just down the street, there was this shopping center there's 100 people lined up. And this is maybe like 4 or 5 days after, money in hand, waiting to buy whatever they could from this grocery store. And it's probably the only grocery store for a long ways. And I was thinking, if that was in the US, like those windows would be freaking broken, that store would be looted, and they had lost everything, families, you know, whatnot, what have you. And there's like 100 people lined up waiting to just buy whatever they could, if anything, if there was going to be anything there. Yeah. So as far as like the language barrier, there was a ton of respect just all around. You knew you're just there. They knew you're there to help. And we knew that we were there to help in any way we could.
Well, it's such an honor and respect based culture, having been there.
Oh,
so
yeah.
like the reason I went to Guam is because I first flew out to my cutter that was in Japan. And then, so I got to patrol out there, like in the ocean, and then we'd come back to port there. And yeah, the first thing I noticed from the Japanese people were one of the things that everyone that goes to Japan will notice is like, there's no trash anywhere, but there's also no trash cans anywhere. And you're like, what am I doing with my banana peel? And I remember walking miles and miles and being like, I don't know what to do with my banana peel, and I had to go into the. I think I went to like the 7-Eleven type store, and I felt bad, and I wanted to be respectful, so I bought a lot of things, and I was like, by the way, can you throw this out? And she was like, oh, like she could tell I was like a white person that couldn't speak Japanese, and like I was ignorant. So
why is this dude handing me a banana peel?
I know, it was awkward. So, but yeah, like, so I guess you describing it, like, yeah, like how were the Japanese acting in such a horrific environment? Were they still like such a prestigious people, or?
Oh yeah, you land into, that's one, we landed in, you know, schoolyards where they pushed away like you know, all the schoolyard equipment so you could land, and you landed, and there was an organized structure at that wherever you landed. Like everyone knew who you needed to talk to. Hey, we landed in Pointy-Talkie. Hey, what do you guys need? Oh, you need to go talk to this guy. This guy knows English. Like, this is what we need. We landed somewhere and we were told, another example, landed somewhere and we were told that they needed these, you know, all of these resources that we had on our aircraft. We landed and they wouldn't take them. We had to force them to take what we had. Like, no, and they lined up, and we just hand over hand, like in a giant, like they had some guy go in, a whole bunch of people came out, and they started basically a chain gang and threw everything, and we got everything in. But it was like twisting arms to get them to take it. Like, no, like we landed here. We're not taking off until this is out of our aircraft.
Yeah, you're doing it like you're not doing us a favor. We need to get rid of this to take off.
Yeah, we need to be lighter.
That would be a different story in America. I feel like, you know, you got Americans. Give me that. Where were you? It took hours.
Like Indonesia, we had guys that were part of was Indonesia, Haiti, the Haiti relief. And they would storm the helicopter the moment they landed. Sometimes they had kids throwing water bottles into the rotor.
Well, that's so cool. So you, I guess one of the things I'm